Huge day today. Lance Regal, our cameraman for theaviationist.com here in the United States, and myself are headed about an hour south of here because we found out that there's one of few remaining Republic F-105F Thunderchiefs on display down there. It's just sitting out in the open, or at least that's what we've heard. We're not exactly positive it's still there. Tremendous amount of history behind this aircraft. An amazing amount of books have been written, some of the best aviation books in history. We're going to go down there, see if the plane is still there. Maybe we'll get a chance to see it, feel it, and touch it.
So you're pretty sure this airplane's actually here still?
99%.
You saw it when you were a kid?
I saw it a couple years ago.
Really? Oh, for God's sake, I can't believe it. There it is. Man, that's crazy.
Your destination is on the left.
Wow, it really is just sitting out in the middle of a field. It's like in the guy's front yard. Unbelievable. You can just walk right up to it. Oh, that's crazy.
All right, I can't believe it. We made it here and the aircraft is actually here. Let's take a look at it. Come on. One of the things that strikes you when you walk up to this is how truly enormous this plane is. You know, it's almost 20 feet, it's a couple inches short of 20 feet high, and it's 64 feet long, nearly the size of a World War II B-17 heavy bomber. So this one is a two-seat model. It's an F-105F, and this is the one that flew the SAM suppression Wild Weasel mission in the Vietnam War. We understand from some of the historical information that's here that this aircraft actually did perform the Wild Weasel mission from Thailand in Vietnam toward the latter stages of the war. Let's take a look up close. 20mm cannon mounted in the nose. Here's the shark mouth, and we're not sure if these markings are original, but they look pretty original. And as I mentioned, this is a rare opportunity to actually be able to touch it and feel what it's like. When you touch the airplane and you see it up close, you get a feel for how old this technology is compared to going to an air show today and seeing a brand new F-35, where you see a lot of these fasteners, and especially if you look at the cockpit area, the thing looks like something out of like the 60s space program, which is pretty appropriate because remember, this aircraft really reflects about 1950s technology. A unique feature of the F-105 is that unlike a lot of aircraft today, there are no fuel tanks in the wings. All of the fuel is carried inside the fuselage. That's one of the reasons why the F-105 was so durable and could soak up so much battle damage. You may have seen photos of F-105s with great big holes in the wings, and the pilot sticking their head through the hole in the wing after returning from a mission they survived. The F-105 could do that because no fuel in the wing. But it did carry these great big drop tanks, these huge 450-gallon drop tanks. And what's interesting about this is you saw photos after the Vietnam War of people in Vietnam along the rivers making these weird little canoes out of these drop tanks. The pilots used to have to punch these drop tanks off or eject them from the aircraft during a mission very commonly. So by the end of the Vietnam conflict, these things were laying all over the jungles of Vietnam. And it's kind of interesting, like this one's empty, and when you see them up close, you get a feel for the fact that it probably didn't cost a ton of money to make these drop tanks. So if you had to punch these off or eject them during a mission, it wasn't a big deal. It was better to do that, get the aircraft home. Without the drop tanks, the performance of the aircraft improved significantly. When we go around back here to take a look at the back end, we got to be a little careful because there's a hornet's nest inside the aircraft. The poor thing is really starting to fall apart. Here's the engine. The engine's gone, so that's where the engine would be if it still had one. And let's take a quick look at the landing gear. It's looking pretty rough. This is one of the main wheels, landing light, tire, and the main oleo here with all the hydraulics. And as you can see, it's showing its age. Pretty safe to say this is one Thunderchief that is going to be stuck to the ground for the rest of its life. A lot of the wiring has been cut. I'm not sure if some of that hydraulic line inside of there has also been cut off early, and the paint's chipping. I mean, the aircraft isn't in bad condition, but it's certainly not in museum condition. It's just incredible to find one sitting out here where you can actually see it, feel it, touch it. First flown in 1955, a total of 833 F-105s were built, before production ended in 1964. But of the 833 total aircraft built, a staggering 382 were lost, with 320 of those destroyed in combat during the Vietnam War. Even though the plane was either a single or two-seat aircraft with one engine, the F-105 Thunderchief carried a massive payload, 3 times heavier than American four-engine heavy bombers of World War II, like the famous Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress. Frank Steele owns the H&D Ellis Inn bed and breakfast at the corner of High Street and Adrian, where the F-105 is located. What do you think about having it in your yard? Is it a little weird?
It was at first, and you get used to it after a while. It's a conversation piece. It causes people to stop and check it out, like you did.
Yeah, there's a lot. I'd give almost anything to have one in my yard.
Yeah. How did you hear about this plane here, or did you just happen across it?
There's a Facebook group called F-105 Thunderchief, and it's mostly for veterans who worked on the plane and a few pilots.
Sure.
And I had done a bunch of research on the aircraft, read a stack of books about its history, and on that Facebook page, in that group, somebody said, well, you know, there's one like an hour south of you.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, I think it's still there. And he, Lance, our cameraman, as a kid, and even recently, he said, oh, I've seen that. You know, he's been here before. I was like, there's no way it's still there. And he's like, no, I think I saw it like a year ago.
Yeah.
Do many people stop by to look at it?
A lot, yeah.
Do they?
Yeah, probably, a dozen a week.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's
We even
good.
get them pulling in our driveway here to go check it out, and they pull in over at the Legion and check it out.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.